Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar on entering the Hong Kong fintech market, which is jointly organized by Fintech Alliance Philippines and Invest Hong Kong. My name is Melvin Lee. I'm from Invest Hong Kong. Quick introduction of who we are, who Invest Hong Kong is all about. Invest Hong Kong, we are a government agency, and our role is to promote business and investment ties between foreign companies and Hong Kong. So we work with foreign companies who are looking at expanding their business and investment deals in Hong Kong itself. So for myself, I work with Filipino companies. I'm based in Singapore, but I work with Filipino companies who are exploring the business opportunities in Hong Kong. In today's session, to kick off, we will have Mr. Lito Villanueva, founding chairman of Fintech Alliance Philippines, which I believe is no stranger to many of you joining us. Besides being the founding chairman of Fintech Alliance Philippines, Lito, he's also the executive vice president, chief innovation and inclusion officer of RCBC. He's also the chief digital transformation advisor for the Yuchenko group of companies, which is one of the oldest conglomerates in Asia. So I had the pleasure of meeting Lito about 2 months ago in Manila, and we were just sharing with one another about the business and ecosystem for the fintech companies in Philippines and in Hong Kong. And we thought that it's a good chance, for us to have this session together to share more of the opportunities in Hong Kong for Filipino fintech companies, and that's where we have this session now. So I'll leave Lito to give us his opening address and share some thoughts about his expectations for today. Lito, please.
Thank you so much, Melvin. And of course, thank you to all our speakers, our resource persons, and our guests this afternoon. And I think, for hundreds of thousands of Filipinos, Hong Kong has a special place in their hearts. And during a business trip in Hong Kong, I met Filipinos who were working in this global city. We talk about what we miss about home, and of course, that's the Philippines. And most Filipinos leave the country to provide better futures for their families. One of the perpetual problems that their families face at home is access to financial. Another problem is the uncertainty of opportunities if they choose to return to the motherland. So what seems to be such a problem for us in this gathering is an opportunity-depriving barrier to thousands and millions of Filipinos. So my experience with diligent Filipinos in Hong Kong was among the many inspirations for Philippine fintech players to pursue revolutionary, life-changing, and inclusive financial solutions. In this quest to concoct the best solutions, I learned one thing. Fintech, our very own industry, is the greatest contemporary social equalizer ever to be designed. Our members at Fintech Alliance embarked on an ambitious project anchored on a collective Filipino vision of a financially and digitally inclusive future. E-wallets and digital banks are not only facilitating digital transactions, as evident by our contribution during the pandemic when our government distributed billions of pesos worth of social assistance to fund or start our economy. I am convinced that the Philippine fintech players will continue its astronomical growth and outstanding numbers through partnerships with institutions abroad. As China and the Philippines continue their healthy, robust relationship, I am confident that the fintech industry will be flooded with opportunities for limitless and boundless innovation. The real-time fund transfer service InstaPay hit almost 300 million transactions in the first 7 months of this year. This outstanding number has a total value of about 5.5 trillion pesos and a daily volume of about 1.37 million transactions. So these figures are only possible because of financial inclusion initiatives led by major fintech players. Fintech has made onboarding of Filipinos convenient and simple. A Filipino only needs minimum requirements with faster onboarding process, and of course, thanks to the healthy synergy of players and regulators. As you have experienced here in Hong Kong, we can achieve limitless possibilities through sustained collaboration, proactive regulation, and healthy competition. The massive exodus of Filipinos, Philippine companies, and Philippine government to digital has created a vibrant, promising, and value-added fintech ecosystem in the Philippines. The fintech industry is expected to sustain its as long as the current administration has committed to a digital-first economy and governance, expedited the entry of new internet service providers like Elon Musk Starlink, and prioritized digital infrastructure. The collective efforts of the civil society, private sector, and of course, to financially include millions of Filipinos has accelerated our post-pandemic economic growth. In addition, 56% of the adult Filipinos are now banked and thanks to fintech. This is a jump from 29% in 2019. Despite the leaps that Filipinos have made in digital finance, there are still 34.3 million Filipinos who are yet to be banked. Hong Kong offers a world-class business environment, a reliable and dependable government, unmatched financial and operational support, access to valuable local and global markets, and an excellent digital infrastructure. These are critical factors for Filipino businesses to continue innovating and scale their initiatives globally. The vibrant startup system in Hong Kong is attractive to Filipino fintech companies who are looking for new digital solutions. In fact, Filipinos can learn from Hong Kong stories of success to grow and sustain fintech startups in the country. World-class talent and globally top-notch education in Hong Kong are critical for Filipino fintech companies to mitigate and address emerging threats and exploit and ride the rising opportunities in the Philippine fintech industry. Lastly, Filipino thought leaders, market shapers, and policy makers can study the friendly environment designed by Hong Kong regulators for fintech. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority saw the potential in fintech and digital banking that they crafted digital-friendly solutions as early as 2017. Learning from Hong Kong is important to create, prepare, and manage the next wave of digital revolution in the Philippines. On the other hand, our Pinoy fintech can offer our distinct and unique experiences in making fintech work for the rural poor and financially excluded. Through culturally nuanced and context-sensitive solutions, the Philippines was able to set the trajectory for the immense growth and acceptance of fintech in disconnected and displaced areas. We at Fintech Alliance know how valuable of a partner Hong Kong will be in expediting our efforts to grow even further the Filipino fintech system. We are excited to work with Hong Kong as a scale-up launchpad for bigger and better opportunities to expand into other Asian markets. With a bright roster of speakers and participants, as well as organizers, I foresee that the conversations today will become solutions for tomorrow. I challenge everyone to continue creating and curating digital solutions that improve lives beyond our borders and our comfort zones. Together, we will continue to introduce innovative digital business solutions to the commercial home market and regional investors in order to push fintech adoption by more major financial institutions worldwide. Thank you, and let's have an engaging afternoon. Back to you, Melvin.
Thanks, Lito. Thanks very much for sharing how Filipino companies can leverage on the Hong Kong platform to expand their business, not just regionally, but also internationally. So to further elaborate on that, we will have our next speaker, Mr. King Leong. King is our head of fintech sector in fintech team in Hong Kong, in our Invest Hong Kong headquarters. He works specifically with foreign companies from all over the world who are expanding their business and investing into Hong Kong, using Hong Kong as a base for further expansion into the region. So he's well-versed in the Hong Kong fintech scene and well-connected with the fintech community over there. So I think he will be the ideal person to share a bit more about the business opportunities in Hong Kong, particularly for the fintech sector. So over to you, King, please.
Thank you, Melvin. Thank you, Lito, for the kind introduction for me to talk to your members and the stakeholders in your ecosystem. So perhaps I would just pull up my slides so that I think the audience can look at the slide so that it's easier to follow some of the key messages. Now, so I think before we start with the Hong Kong story, I really want to start with the I would say at the time a major breakthrough, a game changer. Collaboration between Philippines and Hong Kong. I think for those of you who have been following the blockchain, the cross-border remittance scene, so back in 2018, Alipay Hong Kong and your GCash have really worked together to offer this blockchain-based cross-border remittance collaboration. So again, I was told by my colleagues at Alipay that this is something that is highly adopted since its launch, that actually help quite a lot of Filipinos who have worked diligently in Hong Kong and are able to remit money back to their family back in Philippines. So this is really a good way for us to illustrate, I think, the kind of opportunities that we have between our two economies. Now, I think a good way to also give you a sense about the kind of ecosystem that we have in Hong Kong is that, as you can see from the pie chart in the middle, that has a good sort of representation of the breakdown of the various subsectors within fintech. So from the sort of the 1 o'clock direction, you will see the compliance, the RegTech, and then so going clockwise, you get like credit tech, basically lending, digital assets, insurtech, of course, payments, all the way down to wealth tech. So, I mean, there's a pretty even distribution, I may say, across the different use cases. And the reason is simple, because when we look at the Hong Kong ecosystem, I would say 80-20 rule, the 2/3 of the opportunities there in Hong Kong are predominantly B2B. Whereas the rest, 1/3 would be B2C. So therefore, when you go by the opportunities of sizing, so a lot of companies would like to use Hong Kong as a base to promote and expand their B2B presence. And because of, given the fact that Hong Kong has been an international financial center for decades, so we have a pretty even distribution of the various sectors within the financial services industry, from banking to wealth management to insurance. So obviously, all these financial institutions, they have their own needs on fintech to help them upgrade their capabilities and help them go down the digitization path. So that's why you see a pretty even adoption across the board. Now, on the right, there's a little pie chart where you see that 44% of the fintech founders in Hong Kong are actually from all around the world. These are international backgrounds entrepreneurs. And this is something that really speaks volume to the international nature of the Hong Kong fintech environments. Now, and just now I briefly mentioned of the pretty diverse financial services sector in Hong Kong. Now, I won't go into detail in terms of all the numbers, but basically you can see from the column under number of firms, there are really literally hundreds of thousands of financial institutions. So particularly if you are in the B2B fintech space, there are like thousands of financial institutions for you to sell your solution to. So this is why that we have so many fintech companies coming in, where 2/3 of them are in the B2B space. Now, another reason why the companies come to Hong Kong is really about fundraising, and also for good reasons, because now on the left, you see a pie chart that basically illustrates the private capital distribution across Asia Pacific. Now, and when we look at the biggest slice, which is China, that China accounts for what 53% of all the private capital available in Asia Pacific. And actually, Hong Kong, we sat number 2, just behind our mother country, the mainland, where we account for 14% of all the private capital available in Hong Kong, in Asia Pacific. And by the way, this is a study put together for us by PwC, the consulting firm, based on data from the AVCJ, which is a very well-respected organization. So a lot of people are not aware of this, that between the VC, the PE, if you lump up all the private capital, Hong Kong has an enormous depth in terms of that fundraising capability. Now, on the right, that's about the IPO where the Hong Kong stock market has been having a pretty amazing 10 years. In fact, over the past 12 years, 7 of the past 12 years, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange ranked #1 in the world for helping raise money through IPOs for various companies. And in fact, for a lot of folks who may not be familiar, the size of the Hong Kong stock market is so huge that, of course, I think we have a lot of respect for our neighbor, the folks in Singapore. But then we look at the capital market, the public market. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the Hong Kong public market, is 10 times the size of Singapore. 10 times. So it's not even close. So that's why a lot of companies, particularly going back to Lito's point, for those companies that are in the scale-up phase, where they would like to, let's say, go IPO in, say, 1 to 2 years, a lot of times those companies would choose Hong Kong as a place for them to scale up, so that they're able to get some late-stage VC money to help them bridge, say, from Series C to Series D, and get them ready for IPO in 2 years, and they get listed in Hong Kong. So this is a pretty sort of common strategy. Now, I understand, yeah, this is about busy, but I just want to give you a sense about the, I guess, a wide range of subsidies offered through various Hong Kong government departments, because we have been really just going behind, working very hard, supporting many startups. And for the startups, particularly in fintech, actually, one of my colleagues have really taken the time to go through all the various subsidies available in Hong Kong and summarize them into a single slide. Now, actually, if you add up all the subsidies that would be available, that would come up to roughly, if you convert back to, let's say, US dollar, is roughly $3 million US dollar, $3 million US dollar of subsidies of different nature, if you are supposedly eligible for all of them. So this is a way for us to really support the startup community by various help. Now, so besides the depth of the market in terms of potential clients, in terms of the fundraising, the government subsidies and support schemes, actually the policy side and also the regulatory support is also very important. Now, the regulator in Hong Kong, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, which is the banking regulator, at the same time, our de facto central bank, they have launched this, what they call the Fintech 2025 strategy, and that was last year. So when they laid out a strategy, they have, as you can see on the slide, there are 5 different objectives. In the interest of time, I'll just highlight the first one. That is all banks go fintech. So essentially, it is the regulator telling the banks, okay, you have to do some fintech, you have to buy some fintechs so that you are able to raise the competitiveness of your financial institution. Now, there's a lot of statistics, so I won't bore you with the details. I just want to highlight a few, just to give you a sense. So when we look at all the banks in Hong Kong being surveyed by the HMA, we recognize that the medium-sized banks are the one that would be really in a, I would say, aggressive mode when it comes to adoption of fintech. Now, another aspect that will be interesting for you for reference is that you might ask of the various segments of fintechs, which are the ones that have gained the most traction and or having the highest growth rates in the next few years. Now, first of all, as of today, RegTech has been the widest adopted fintech subsegments by many banks. But when it comes to the growth rates, I highlighted 2 towards the bottom. So green tech and legal tech. In fact, the growth rate has been just astounding. You see like over 122, 121% growth for green tech and 92% for legal tech. So those are the ones that are really gaining a lot of traction, but at the same time have high growth trajectory. Now, and besides that, we have our Policy Bureau, which is the FSTB, Financial Services, and the Treasury Bureau, which is basically the bureau responsible for policy making for the financial services sector. They've also launched another scheme, and this is called the FinTech Proof of Concept Subsidy Scheme. And this is really designed to encourage the banks, the insurance companies to adopt FinTech. So the way that it works is that basically the government would pay for the POC on behalf of the FI. so that the FI does not have to go through the long-drawn procurement process to bring in a new POC project from a fintech company. This is a way to accelerate fintech adoption. So from bar chart in the bottom, you can see a distribution where the top three, as you can see here, will be wealth tech, reg tech, insurtech, and number 4 is paytech. Now, I think in Philippines, to my understanding, Web3 or metaverse and NFTs are really taking off like a rocket. So that's why I want to touch a little bit about the Web3 opportunities in Hong Kong. So from the Hong Kong government perspective, or from the Invest Hong Kong perspective, we really think that Web3 is going to help basically reshape the world in a way to sort of redistribute income, where I think some of the probably the underprivileged folks, I think we call this financial inclusion, where I think more people can get access to the various opportunities via Web3. And so that's why we feel that this is not just about business. This is also having the impacts to societies, not just in Hong Kong, but also in other parts of the world, including the Philippines. Now, there are a few aspects that we look at the Web3 opportunities in Hong Kong. And number one, there are a lot of high net worth individuals in Hong Kong. We're very blessed that Hong Kong is actually one of the top 5 cities in the world with the highest concentration of high net worth individual. In fact, we have been always in the top 5, and based on one of the surveys, we're actually number 2, the world city with the highest number of UHNW, which stands for the ultra high net worth individuals. So basically, we have a high concentration of pretty affluent people that run family offices and so forth, and they are constantly looking for alternative investment. Okay, so let's hold that thought about alternative investment. Now, and one of them is actually arts. And in fact, I think for those of you who may not know, actually Hong Kong is the 2nd largest art auctions market in the world, just behind New York. We used to be number 3, but we surpassed London in the year 2020. So now we're number 2. So a lot of the affluent segments, they do invest into arts as one of the alternative investments. So that's why Hong Kong is like super vibrant in this market. Now, and I think for those of you who are into perhaps the gaming, the play to earn, you might have heard of this company called Animoca Brands. We're very proud. Animoca Brands is one of the unicorns in Hong Kong. By now, they are worth roughly $5 to $6 billion US. But just over a year, like 18 months ago, they were even below 1 billion. So within a stretch of 1 year, they've jumped from less than a billion to now close to 6 billion. And one of the reasons is because they are not just like a pretty, I would say, narrowly focused company. As you can see with all the logos on the right. Now, and by the way, I'm not even sure this is the most up to date. When I talked to one of their executives recently, they're having a portfolio of over 350 Web3 related companies, not just gaming. Of course, blockchain gaming is huge. Esports is huge, like metaverse, art, marketplace, DeFi, infrastructure, crypto wallet, and so on. They have been investing in so many companies to try to create a vibrant ecosystem of Web3, and particularly around the personal digital property rights. So that's another thing that I'm happy to take more questions during Q&A. But this is a very exciting and impactful development for the whole world. Now, another thing that we're doing on Web3, we are also promoting this, what we call the Spartan Global Summit. In fact, they have a launch event at the Island Shangri-La in Hong Kong, literally a few hours ago, which I went there to support. Now, in a nutshell, it is a blockchain network without cryptocurrency, where it is interoperable. So different blockchains from the consensus to the Hyperledger, they can talk to each other. So actually quite a lot of, I would say, mainstream so-called traditional companies, in the case of like HSBC. So we got the Empress Group, which is a large conglomerate in Hong Kong. We got even like Fujifilm. We have quite a lot of firms. The so-called traditional brands, they're very interested to use blockchain, but they're a little bit concerned about cryptocurrency. So that's why the BSN network is basically blockchain without cryptocurrency in a nutshell. And again, this is a topic in and of itself. If you have any question, I'm also happy to answer some question during Q&A. So please feel free, by the way, to send in your questions in the chat box so that my colleague Melvin and I can go through them and help answer them to you in due course. Now, so as you can feel by now, there are really different resources across the Hong Kong ecosystem to help fintech companies to thrive and succeed. Now, and that's not it. We have even more. Okay, just by looking at the logos here, there's so many different accelerator programs. They are there to connect the fintechs with potential corporate clients and potential investors. And one of them is the Global Fast Track program run by Invest Hong Kong by our fintech team. Now, so the link is here, which is very simple, is www.globalfasttrack.hk. Now, once you click the Apply Now button, you just basically spend 50 minutes and then you're in. And also, it's free to join. And also, it doesn't require you to have physical presence in Hong Kong to join the program. Now, you may ask, so what does this program do? Now, it is basically a multifaceted business matching program. So, of course, as I just mentioned, we actively reach out to a lot of the major corporates where they are the ones that are ready to bring in the fintechs to help them with their own digitalization journey and also other parts of fintech upgrades. So these are essentially the ready buyers of fintech solutions. Now, at the same time, we reach out to different investors. They are the angels, they are the VCs, the corporate venture arms of large corporations. We have family offices. So all these investors, they are there to invest in you and also provide you with the smart money and the connections to help you succeed, not just in Hong Kong, but also regionally in Asia Pacific, and that's as well as other parts of the world, such as the US. Because some of the investors that we have onboarded, now, by the way, this is not the most latest one. We're constantly onboarding new investors, some of them from the US, some of them from mainland China, some from Japan, some from Thailand, and so forth. So we have a pretty wide range of investors that will be there to help you. We also have other major service providers. These are the ones that can offer you help when it comes to like market entry strategy, advisory on getting licensed, access to talents. So essentially, or access to data like Google. So we have basically got it all mapped out. So anything major that you need, chances are we have some service providers, service champions there to help you. Now, there are different verticals in this program, and I won't go into details, but it's fair to say that it covers almost the whole spectrum of fintechs, including the very hot digital asset space. Now, and you may ask, what's that thing in the bottom, the CBDC track? So basically, this is the track where we are collaborating with the regulator, HKMA, to crowdsource use case ideas on CBDC, central bank digital currency. And the reason for that is because, let me go back. The reason for that is because actually Hong Kong has been pretty advanced when it comes to the particularly wholesale CBDC, that we will rank #1 together with Thailand as the most market-ready economies in the world for wholesale CBDC. So we'd like to essentially take the concepts from POC to real-world applications. So that's why we are launching this track as a way to attract a lot of international players, as well as the tech companies, the banks, the fintechs, to give us more ideas about what kind of use cases can be used in day-to-day lives. Now, this is the timeline. I just want to point to your attention that this fast track program has a deadline of September 16. So it's getting close. It's about roughly 10 days to go, but that's okay. Just sign up first. And then again, it takes only 50 minutes. Once you join, you are able to go through the pitching process, where eventually you are able to connect with potential clients, potential investors, or potential partners / service providers. Now, another thing that I would encourage you to take advantage of is the Hong Kong FinTech Week, which is a major program that we've been running in Hong Kong for the past 7 years. Now, so the Hong Kong FinTech Week is actually the largest FinTech event in Hong Kong. So actually, we are expecting roughly 17,000 physical attendees, and more importantly, over 4 million international stakeholders that would join us virtually. And at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we are able to connect to more countries around the world, to more people like yourself, so that we can be helpful. Now, and you can see the link in the bottom, the FintechWeek.hk. So once you join, there's actually a section called like Startup Exhibition Package and then International Delegation Packages. Now, so basically, those are like subsidy programs to basically support international players to join the FinTech Week at a steeply discounted price. So again, if you have a question, feel free to ask during Q&A or drop us an email. We are happy to give you more information about how to take advantage of the various support programs to participate at the FinTech Week as well. Now, so again, because the metaverse and NFT is also like super hot in Philippines. So of all different components of the FinTech Week, I would like to highlight one thing for you, and that is the experience zone. So as you can see, we have the NFTs, the metaverse experience, as well as other FinTech use cases. So the idea is to basically generate more market awareness, hence promoting market adoption of all these new domains. So this is the link of the FinTech Week. And also these are the emails for myself and also my colleague Melvin that we are here to support you, to provide you information, to in a way to just take advantage of all the different resources that Hong Kong has to offer to help you succeed in Asia and beyond. So with that, perhaps I'll just pause here because I know that I bombarded all of you with a lot of information. Perhaps we can just slow down a bit and see if we can give you some time to ask questions that we can go into Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, King. Thanks for your sharing. I hope that what King has shared would have given everyone a quick overview about what the Hong Kong FinTech scene is like, what the Hong Kong FinTech environment is like, and what are some of the opportunities. As King has mentioned, this is a very broad overview. If there are any questions on whether it's specific verticals of under the FinTech sector, or there's some specific queries that you would like to find out more, please feel free to post your questions through the chat function. I believe King will be more than happy to address some of these queries that you may have. Yeah. So please do so now if we have about 10-15 minutes for a Q&A session. Yeah. I think, King, maybe just while waiting for the questions to come in, I think one of the common questions that we often get from foreign companies is, while Hong Kong is an exciting, offers exciting business opportunities, but many of them also look at Hong Kong as a base for tapping on the opportunities coming from mainland China. So on this note, would you be able to elaborate a bit more about, like, particularly for the FinTech sector, how companies can use Hong Kong as a base for expansion into mainland China too? Yeah.
Well, there are actually quite a lot of ways. In fact, we have been putting together a program called GBA Fast Track, which is I would say another sub-track within the Global Fast Track program. GBA stands for the Greater Bay Area, which is the southern part of China. There's a population of 86 million and the GDP of 1.8 trillion. So that's the size of like South Korea or Canada. So it's an enormous economy in and of itself. So when we talk about the various opportunities, it's a pretty wide-ranging. First of all, in Hong Kong, we have the privilege of having the international products, easy access to many international financial products. But then for the citizens in the GBA or the rest of China, in a way, it's not as easy to access other international financial products because of certain regulatory constraints and so on. So that's why within the GBA, via Hong Kong, companies are able to offer the wealth tech solutions so that let's say, let me give you a real example. So there's a program called Wealth Management Connect in the GBA. And basically what it is that when we have someone, let's say in Hong Kong, that's running a wealth tech company, which there are a few, they already have a white label, so to speak, their solution in which they are already onboarded like thousands of like mutual funds and other financial instruments. So with this white label platform, you are able to connect into, for example, a mainland Chinese bank in Guangzhou, so that you are able to tap into the customer base by selling the different financial products. Now, so what's in it for the Guangzhou mainland bank? That's because as a, let's say, medium-sized mainland bank, sometimes it's difficult for them to compete with the largest banks in China, like the Bank of China, the CCB, the ICBC. So medium-sized guys, they may not have the kind of financial muscle to develop their own wealth management offering. But by using the wealth tech, they're able to tap into all these international products via the Wealth Connects, be able to offer to the mainland Chinese customers of theirs, so that this is like a multi-win situation. So this is just one example of the wealth tech developments in Hong Kong. Of course, there are others, such as cross-border payments, cross-border trade finance, supply chain finance. Again, as many of you would know, now China is an enormous manufacturing powerhouse. But in recent years, for different reasons, from costs to other considerations by the corporate bosses, they have, even the mainland Chinese manufacturing bosses, they've diversified their supply chain by having factories move to other parts of Asia, or even Africa. Now, so you can imagine there's all these suppliers in other parts of the world. Sometimes they need the funding as cash flow. But then in their own country, maybe they are facing a less mature financial market, that perhaps the SME supplier, they have to pay, who knows, right, 10%, 50% interest to get the money as working capital if they have to procure like some kind of ingredients and raw materials and so on. But with the supply chain finance, cross-border supply chain finance via Hong Kong, then some of the mainland Chinese players, as well as the Hong Kong players, they're able to tap into particularly the capital market in Hong Kong. So instead of 10% interest rate to borrow a loan, actually, maybe the Southeast Asian supplier can get access to a loan that's 6%. So that saves them quite a lot of money when it comes to interest payments. So this is another opportunity that we are seeing quite a lot of traction regarding cross-border supply chain finance. So again, I can go on and on and on, but in short, there are loads of opportunities in the GBA that get many of us in Hong Kong and GBA very excited.
Thanks, King. Yeah. A couple more questions. I think one of the questions is really about what Invest Hong Kong does, whether we can help aspiring startup founders with visa application and the relocation process to Hong Kong. Yes, indeed, that's the role of Invest Hong Kong. We help companies, we help founders, startup founders or companies who are looking at setting up a presence in Hong Kong with anything that makes it easier for their process of getting themselves started in Hong Kong. Whether is it like a visa application, whether is it the relocation process, or whether is it to find office space, recruit staff, basically anything that makes it easier for them to do so. So we'd be happy to have a chat. And really every company has a different kind of requirements. So our services are all customized to the needs of the respective companies, and our services are all complementary. Yeah. So there's another question, perhaps King can help out with. MAS and BSP. BSP, I believe, is the Central Bank of Philippines, have banned the use of clickable links due to the rise in cyber fraud and scams. Is Hong Kong doing something likewise? And whether there are any alternatives to clickable links? Yeah. Well,
the short answer is I'm not sure. I'm not, because this is a very specific question, so I don't know the answer. But it's something that is of interest to the audience, so we can look it up and pass it back to perhaps Melvin and and Lito to share with the audience. The short answer, I don't know. Now, but then in terms of the broader answer, so basically, again, Hong Kong is an international financial center. So a lot of times when it comes to particularly like regulation rules, our regulators are literally like benchmarking against the other major jurisdictions on a regular basis. So so again, I'm not sure about the answer at this moment. So if we have it, that's great. If we don't have it, I would not be surprised that there's something that would they'll go live in a very short period of time.
Okay, thanks, King. Yeah. There is another question also. This is really asking about, in the current situation where things are getting more and more virtual, is there a real need to set up a physical presence in Hong Kong to do business, particularly where Hong Kong and Philippines are so close together and so well connected? I mean, they can still fly over to Hong Kong to do business. Yeah. So perhaps I can give it a shot first, and then King can supplement anything else. Really, yes, it's true. Things are getting more virtual nowadays. Even meetings, especially with the pandemic, many more meetings have gone virtual. But I think there is still a need for a physical presence, particularly in certain types of industry, and depending on what you intend to do. I think it's really a case of getting close to your customers. In some cases, I think very often the customers would actually want to see a physical presence, someone close to them on the ground over there before they are willing to commit. It's really a sign of a commitment to the market, and really a sign of a commitment to your customers about your interest in really supporting and engaging them. So depending on what you do, I believe there is still a role to have a physical presence in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Well, the short answer is absolutely yes. First of all, I don't know whether the question, the gentleman or lady who asked this question, whether you are in B2B or B2C. But let me answer the question in both ways, B2B and B2C. Now, when it comes to B2B, actually, before I joined the government, I actually started 3 different startups. Actually, I've been in all 3 startups. We were in B2B. So I have this first-hand experience in selling B2B solutions, enterprise solutions. Now, yes, theoretically, if someone is really good and the solution is almost like one of a kind, yeah, if you are in even Eastern Europe or even in North Pole, I think the FI would buy from you if you are the only game in town. But practically, in most cases, many solutions will not be the only game in town. There are other competitors. So just imagine, put yourself in the shoes of the CIO or the COO who are in the sort of vetting committee, basically talking to different fintech companies, going through the pitches and so on. Now, one company has a team of 8 people. Now, at the meeting, they have the CEO, CTO, the pre-sale consultant, the head of sales, the customer success head, the compliance officer. The team of 8 people physically standing there in the room. And then the other company, they are dialing in via Zoom with 2 faces in the small boxes on the screen. Now, if those solutions are about the same when it comes to capability, let's assume that the pricing are about the same. If you are the executive, the COO or the CTO of HSBC, who would you choose? So it's actually pretty, I think it's understandable human psychology. The physical presence is indeed very important when it comes to B2B. Now, how about B2C? Now, for B2C, particularly in fintech, we're talking about perhaps like online brokerages. It can be online insurance, or it can be other forms of maybe like online payments and things like that. Now, so all these, I would say, fintech services offered to the consumers, because they are offered to consumers, they are regulated. And if you're regulated, you have to have a physical presence in Hong Kong. because you need to have the responsible person, you have to have a compliance person, you have to register so that in case anything go wrong, the government have some recourse. I mean, the regulator is there to protect the ordinary people. So that's why if you're in B2C, while you can do something remotely, but you do have a local presence that's needed because of regulation. So I hope that this answered the question, hopefully in a more holistic way.
Okay, there's a question about training programs. University of Hong Kong currently offers bachelor's and master's degree in fintech. Are there plans to expand these programs overseas? Because such training programs for fintech is not available in Philippines apparently. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm not 100%
Do you know anything
sure
about their plans, Kim? Yeah.
Well, I can find out. I don't want to speak for them. You know, I don't know, to be honest. I have to find out whether or not they offer like purely 100% virtual program that would be like a degree program. Now, but what I can tell you with 100% confidence is that there are some private organizations in Hong Kong. So let me just try to look it up very quickly, and then I can share that in the chat box so that the gentleman or the lady who asked this question has the answer. Now, so the one thing I want to share with you is that in Hong Kong, we have actually a pretty nice mix of really talented entrepreneurs. And one company is called Accelerates, which I paste the link in a chat function, and at the same time, share screen. As an illustration. Obviously, the other companies, they are equally good, like Accelerate. That's basically what they offer is that they have all these courses. Many of them are tech-oriented, but then tech-oriented in a way that are specifically, in many ways, designed for the tech developments in financial institutions. So that's why when you look at the list, I mean, the UX design, the data science, the various, Python programming and whatnot. In fact, many of the FIs in Hong Kong, they actually use someone like Accelerates as their kind of like pipeline for talents. Now, and this company is a startup themselves. They've been around for, I think, around 5 years. And since then, they have basically provided the training of to 30,000 people. And the reason why I bring this up is because I know for a fact they do have the online program, so in which you can basically take the courses online, and then be able to get the sort of bootcamp certification. And now I don't know where exactly on this website, but I've seen it once before. Actually, they do track the success rate of getting like a job, like a relevant job. Let's just say that someone would go in and get a data science a bootcamp course, 6 months. So after that person graduates with the data science program, within 3 months, 92% of the graduates from this program by Accelerates would be offered a job, a relevant job at various corporates. Mostly financial institutions in Hong Kong. So the short answer is yes, there are programs like this. It's just that for specifically Hong Kong U and those universities, I'm not 100% sure whether or not they offer virtual program. But this may be a good start.
Okay. Yeah, there is also a question pertaining to the data privacy regulation in Hong Kong. So apparently in the Philippines, there's a lot of anonymous spam text messages to cell phone numbers. And very often the sender even know the names of the receiver. So the query is, what are the best practices in Hong Kong pertaining to data privacy regulation, in particular reference to SIM registration?
Well, first of all, the short answer is I'm not an expert in this. But one thing for sure is that the regulation is now basically phasing out the prepaid SIM card. So all the SIM has to be owned by a registered person. So therefore, essentially everybody who uses a phone in Hong Kong, anything conducted by that person can be tracked. So anonymous user using prepaid SIM card is no longer feasible.
Okay, thanks, King. Yeah. I think we have covered most of in fact, all of the questions that have been posed. Should anyone have any further questions or comments, after this session, you may take some time to digest some of the information that's been shared. Should you have any more questions or comments that you would like to raise, please feel free to send to either King or myself. I mean, you have our email contacts, and I believe our phone numbers was also shared in the King's presentation earlier. We'll be happy to address them subsequently, or if need be, I mean, I do travel to Manila periodically. I'll be happy to have a separate meeting and visit you for further discussion on any of this subject matter that you have queries about. So we're happy to take the discussion further going forward. So let's not just take this as the end of the discussion further after the end of this webinar. Okay. Thanks, King, for your sharing and for addressing the various queries. I think we have now more or less come to the end of our webinar today. And to close the webinar today, we have the pleasure of having Commissioner Lester Lee from the Securities and Exchange Commission of the Philippines to join us to wrap up the discussion. As Commissioner, his role is to oversee key regulatory functions of the SEC, such as market and securities regulation, sustainable finance, information and financial technology, and international affairs. He's also a contributor to the Manila Times and a law professor on corporate law and governance. Commissioner Lee is also a regular speaker at the major conferences such as those by Asian Development Bank, OECD, and the Global Reporting Initiative. I think it's apt that we have him to wrap up today's discussion for us. Commissioner Lee, please.
Hi, thank you, Melvin. Ladies and gentlemen, to the distinguished speakers this afternoon, as well as to Mr. Lito Villanueva, the chair of the Fintech Alliance of the Philippines, Mr. Melvin Lee of InvestHK, to Mr. King Leong of InvestHK, members and guests on behalf of the Securities and Exchange Commission of the Philippines, a pleasant good afternoon to all of you. Before I formally close this event, I'd like to thank Fintech Alliance, Invest Hong Kong, and Fintech Hong Kong for organizing this event for the Philippine Fintech community. We have already collaborated, the SEC, and partnered several times in the past with Fintech Alliance, and it's truly my honor to work with you and witness this technological revolution of Fintech happening before our very eyes. Now, to the Fintech Alliance members who are here with us today, while we may not be the first country, the Philippines may not be the first country that necessarily comes to mind when we speak of Fintech, I truly believe in Filipino talent, and not just in technical skills, but also entrepreneurial skills. If one looks closely, Filipinos and Filipino companies have a lot of potential, and we have a lot to offer to the world. Our vast talent pool remains one of the most sought after globally, and as I've always been pleasantly surprised by the very strong interest in our country as a fintech destination. In fact, I've met with a lot of foreign fintech companies who want to expand their operations in the Philippines. In any case, I hope that this session has inspired you to launch your businesses and take it to greater heights and to conquer the international market, starting out in Hong Kong. Coming from the SEC, a Philippine financial regulator, and myself being a fellow Filipino, I take a lot of pride in seeing Filipino companies thrive in the global market. We've already seen several conglomerates who have done this. It's time now, I think, for Filipino fintech companies to make its mark in the global scene, and they can start out definitely in Hong Kong. This has been a very informational and eye-opening discussion on the opportunities available in Hong Kong for our fintech firms, and I am one with all of you in hoping for the success of the Filipino fintech community, both locally and abroad. The SEC Philippines is with you in this journey, and you can count on our continuous support to the industry. Thank you once again. God bless you all, and mabuhay tayong lahat.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lee. We certainly look forward to more Filipino fintech companies expanding their businesses overseas using Hong Kong as a platform. And we certainly hope that this webinar will kickstart more ties between investment and business ties between Filipino fintech companies as well as those in Hong Kong. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this webinar. We hope that it has given you some food for thought. As mentioned, we'll be happy to take the discussion further subsequently should you have any further queries. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.